just on the way to get my car washed, and I thought, you know what, let me speak about something very, very important. A lot of you think that to make more return in the market, that you need to increase risk. This is not true. Obviously, it comes down to how you trade, I get that, and all these things play a massive role in it, but when it comes to trade management, none of you should be capping your trades at 1 to 2s or 1 to 3s. It makes no sense, and I'm not saying it makes no sense to me, it makes no sense as a whole in the markets. It doesn't matter how you trade. A lot of the reason why most of you guys cap your trades at 1 to 2s or 1 to 3s is because you think, well, if I hold on to a trade for longer, then that means that I must be holding on to it emotionally. That's not the case. And it doesn't just come down to how you trade. I'm not saying this because this is how I trade and, you know, because I don't agree with it, that must mean you're wrong. I'm not saying that at all. I'm looking at this holistically, right? After having coached so many people, after having seen so many traders at different points in their journey, including myself as well, you know, my own background, my own experience, there is so much opportunity cost by just capping your trades at 1 to 2s or 1 to 3s. And the problem is that you might think you're making a logical and a very mechanical decision, but you're actually holding yourself back from a lot of potential that you can't tap into because you think that holding on to a trade longer now is a higher risk. It's not a higher risk. Anything has a greater risk if you don't know what you're doing. Okay, for example, if I try and operate on someone's heart, it's obviously going to have a very high chance of not going well. That's because I'm not a heart surgeon. If I try and compete in the Premier League as a football player when I can't even kick a ball, obviously I'm not going to have a high chance of winning. So everything comes with a risk when you're not well educated or well trained in a particular sector. If you believe that holding a trade for longer than 1 to 2 or 1 to 3 is something that comes with a risk, it's just because you don't know how to manage trades properly. Now, that isn't a proper form of management because you're capping your potential massively. I get it, the maths works in your favor, and I get it. All you need really is a 1 to 2 and a 1 to 3. I don't want to disagree with that. You know, you just need a few percent a month on large amounts of money and you're great. But why cap your performance when you don't have to increase risk? Now, if you have to increase risk with the way that you trade, then I do believe you have to tamper with certain aspects of your system so that it can cater for you being able to be more dynamic in terms of your management. Brother, okay? Do you take card? Cash payment only? I don't have my card. Does anyone do cash back around here? I've only got Apple Pay. Just wash and dry. I very, very rarely get my car washed because most car washes don't actually use the right equipment and I don't like damaging my paintwork as well. In about less than 20 minutes from now, I do have the webinar. I had Live Trader in the morning, which is amazing. I'll post a clip of that just now. Anyway, so you build a picture, you can see prices come in 1, 2, 3, sold off again. Couldn't commit to the lows, so it came back up to grab all that fuel again that it didn't have initially to go all the way down to here. It did that and it's starting to come down to here like this now. So we know that, okay, if it is going to pull back up again, it will likely do it from here. But if it's near missed and it's leading into that with a 1, 2, 3 structure like so, 1, 2, it doesn't have to meet the highs. If this trade was to take you out, what would it look like? So if I've drawn it on there, that's what it would look like. And if it would look like that, would it make sense? Yes, it would. So that then increases the risk of the trade. So I would have executed like this. 10 pip stop. I mean, you could have locked in about 8.2 at the moment. These highs up here, what have we got as a 90% range? I then also had a coaching call today, which was extremely productive. But following on from my point, as I said before, that you don't need to increase risk. So hopefully that message resonated with a lot of you because I understand it can be very difficult to unlearn a lot of things that you especially deem to be correct per se. And I'm not saying that you aiming for a 1 to 3 is incorrect. All I'm trying to help you understand is that there are more effective ways to either manage, to execute positions, or just general trading ideologies that when you really understand them, you find that there's a lot more effective ways to go about your trading, basically, is what I'm saying. Break even, but could not afford the risk. That was, so we won't account for that one. Lower time frame did not have 1, 2, 3 breakout. That's a small little minor issue that can be fixed now. I'm mainly looking at these ones. That one. This one. A drawdown recovery tactics. Which there's an there's an art to it, you know, like if I'm in drawdown, you want to start to look at things in terms of offsetting. Whereas people look at things in terms of making profit, which is the wrong mindset to have in drawdown. If I'm down minus 3%, I'm going to look at a position's risk to reward ratio and say, right, if I can get out of this trade with 1.5%, I offset 1.5 losses, you know. And then when you have that mindset, the way that you decide and you make decisions is so much more sustainable. And that's a proven tactic to get out of drawdown, times by self-understanding and strategy equals results. That is 100% correct. After 8-9 years of trading, I can tell you that is it. Results equation is an oversimplified formula for achieving successful trading return. It's built upon 3 concepts: market understanding, so your TAs, self-understanding, and strategy. So this is really, really similar to the trading triangle, in fact, because that would be the technical part, self-understanding would be the psychology, and the strategy would mean the trading plan. So this topic of people using psychology as a scapegoat or people using it as a buzzword in order to not work on the technicals, I agree. But if we look at the reality of the situation, and we look at the vast majority of traders, in fact, look at all the traders in the world, how many of them are really saying psychology is the issue? Very few amount of people. So we can't focus on a minority and make it a majority scenario here. But I'm going to squash this topic once and for all, because people do completely misunderstand it. And that's because the people explaining it are not explaining it in a simple way. Likely don't even know how to explain it because they don't know what they're talking about. Now, why should you listen to me? I mean, you don't have to if you don't want to. I've just coached over 250 odd people over the past few years. And out of those 250 odd people, I would say about 5 or 6 of them, if that, have ever said psychology is their issue. And even that is fixed over one call, so it's not like a major problem. And Falcon as a whole has had over 11,000 students in its ecosystem over the last 7 years. So out of that, I would say about 3 to 5% of people say those things. And again, those things are fixed very, very easily, because all I'll do is I'll jump on a call with them and I'll say, right, these are your technical problems. Maybe you don't know how to position your trades correctly. It might be that your sequence is incorrect, or that your entries, they're on the wrong time frame. You're using a 5-minute when in fact you should be using the 15-minute in these areas. So we'll look at those technical issues. I'll create a bullet point checklist for them, and I'll say, right, for example, Q2, focus on these things, and you just need to focus on fixing them. That's it. And if you fix that, technically you should be making money. Then we assess, right, do they actually make money in the end, or do they not? Now, if they don't make money in the end, having already been told what those technical factors are, then it's likely a psychological problem where they may not have the discipline to bring about in order to execute on those things or those advices given. But it's not a question of what should come first or what shouldn't. That is already, you've failed. If you're giving that kind of advice as to what comes first or what doesn't, you've failed. The true answer is nothing comes first. You should look at all these things in duality together. So let me give you an example. If I'm going to start boxing, I'm not just going to turn up to the lesson with no gloves, no gum shield, no headgear. Common sense would tell you, well, sit down and think, what do you need in terms of equipment before you begin? So you need the gloves, you need the gum shield, okay? You need headgear, you need sportswear. You get the gist. You need all these things before you actually start learning how to box. Otherwise, what, you're going to box bare knuckles? Are you going to go in the ring without a gum shield or headgear? You need these things. You need the equipment there. So what is different in trading? You've got the education, but you need the right equipment within that education. That's very, very key. I can't just tell a trader, listen, just focus on your technicals for the next 6 months, and then we'll have a look at starting on working on your mind. No, it doesn't work that way. Now, look, I'm not dumb to the fact that, say this is representative of your mental framework, right? What you're going to spot 2 years later compared to what you spot 6 months in regarding your trading is going to be different. I'm not dumb to that idea. Of course, that's a reality. But you should at least know before you begin, how is it, if this is you, what kind of a person are you? How do you think up here? What are your beliefs around winning and losing generally? What kind of work do you do? Is that going to have a translation as to how you trade? I've worked with people who've been in sales for a very long time, practically their whole life, and their mindset around making money is about going out and getting. Their mindset around making money is about action. And we know as traders that it's not like that. It's not a case of just turning up to the markets and thinking, right, I'm going to make money this week, because that's the completely wrong mindset to have in the markets. In fact, you'll lose more money having that mindset. So how do you explain to somebody who's been trained in a profession for over 15 to 20 years that making money is done by more action, that now all you have to do is be patient and sit on your hands? That's completely contradicting to the beliefs they have around money. So this is a simple assessment. Look, it took me 20 seconds, if that, to explain that to you. That could be a 20 to 30 second conversation with somebody that could save them 6 months. So this is how important the right information is. So who are you? What kind of beliefs do you have? So you're basically going to do a full psychoanalysis on yourself. And this also allows you to get to know yourself better as well, which is, why would you not want to do that? At the end of the day, you're trading the markets. You need to know who is behind this. Now, once you've got a sort of a map around yourself, okay, you've got all these things as to who you are, your beliefs around money. You need to understand the right checklist as well, which is why if I'm sat with you and I'm coaching you, or you're within Falcon, you'll know what those things are. And you don't have the right education, you won't know what to look at. You'll be like, oh, FOMO, greed. No, it goes way deeper than that, believe me. So you look at all these things and then you have a general analysis on your mind. Now you can go into the markets having a better understanding about yourself. At least then when you make any mistakes, you know where they're stemming from, whether it is a psychological thing, whether it's a technical thing. Now, let me give you a clear example. Somebody comes up to me and they says, Ibby, I have a problem executing with trades. Using my common sense, I'm going to think, right, there's only 2 things in trading, your technicals and your psychology. So let's look at it from a technical standpoint first. So you're struggling executing. That could be because your trading plan, so I'm going to put TP there, is either too detailed or it's not clear enough. So then I check that, and that might be the answer sometimes. They might see that their setups are either predefined incorrectly, which means that they've got too much criteria for it, or they've got ineffective setup, or they've highlighted the wrong time frames. Again, technical related issues that could be stemming from the trading plan, which is where we ultimately make decisions from. If that exists, simple fix, cool. Next thing I look at, if that's already there and they've got a very simple trading plan, they've got very simple setups, very simple, very effective, then I look at the psychology and think, right, why are you struggling to follow a simple plan? You've got discipline issues. So why do you have discipline issues? Then I look at all other areas in their life. Where do they also lack discipline? So that's just a very, very, very brief outlook into that. Now, another thing, you need to know what your threshold is. Okay, now threshold, like here, as you can see, once you cross that, this is when you start to make very foolish trading decisions where you can't really justify why you're making those decisions. Now, to understand this, you need to understand your brain on a very simple level here. You have your analytical side, you have your limbic side. Limbic basically means emotional side. That's your primitive side. This is like a lion. It's asleep most of the time. If you tug at it enough and you poke it enough times and it wakes up, it will completely devour this side, which means your rational, logical thinking goes out the window and you're going to be purely emotional at this stage. Now, every single one of you should be able to relate to this, because think about all the times in your trading where you made those decisions where like you can't justify them afterwards. Why did I take that trade? I shouldn't have taken that trade. I know better than to take that trade. I know my trading plan, but I still got involved. That is when your limbic side's taken over. So this is why knowing your threshold here as to when that happens, that could be when you take 3 losses, it could be when you miss 10% worth of trades. There's always a certain number that we've coded into our mind subconsciously without realizing. You've got to figure that out. If you stay blind to that for over 1 to 2 years and think, I'll just work on my psychology later, you'll continue to deepen the effect of these things. You'll continue to let these things marinate, and they're actually harder to fix later on. Technical problems can be fixed like that over a single call. But these kind of issues, when they're left unspoken of and they're left untreated, it's like an illness. The longer that you don't treat that illness, the worse it will get. Or it's like a car, for example. If you've got your engine management light that comes on, and you just put a duct tape over it thinking I'll work on it later, and then your engine goes, you could have now gone from paying a couple of £100 for an issue that was a simple fix to now replacing your entire engine. That's how severe these things can get, and I've seen it because I've coached people for such a long period of time. To finalize your edge, okay, 3 different things: your trading strategy, you have your trading plan, and then you have your trading psychology. These things have to be worked on in synchronicity with one another. So like I said, the lessons that you learn about psychology, the things that you can learn about your own psychology 6 months in or 3 months in is so much different to what you learn about yourself 2 years and 3 years in. But at least you're staying on top of yourself the whole time. So you're not letting the wrong things marinate. So yes, people do use that as a scapegoat or as an excuse as to like what their issues are, but it's so rare. Like I don't see it as a big problem, like this huge epidemic that's going on. What I see, right, why people are saying this is because a lot of trading educators are now coming to a position where they realize we've not prioritized this from the beginning. We've not made any informative content around this. In fact, we've been saying the opposite for so long, and now a lot of people are trying to save their own ass. So I'm telling you from experience of coaching people for over a few years, for being in Falcon this long, having 11,000 students float through our ecosystem, it's such a rare problem that people say that psychology is the issue. And even if it is, all right, let's have a conversation for 2 minutes. I'll explain why it's not. Let's have a look at your trades. Let's have a look at your 10 most recent trades. And each one, we're going to assess how many of these trades fit your plan and what was the risk rating of these trades, because these are things you have to look at. All you have to see is, are your trades fitting an effective plan, and what is the risk of the trade? So is it higher in risk or is it lower in risk? Which one is it? Now, the majority of your trades should be lower in risk. And we have a very simple guideline when it comes to our students. What we tell them is this. See a numbers line here. Let this be break-even mark, let this be +5, and let this be -5. If you dip beneath 0, you should only be taking low-risk trades. Anything over is usually about 2% here. Anything over 2% onwards is when you've got enough of a buffer with 0.5% risk, because you want to give yourself around 4 losing trades as a buffer. So you've got 4 losing trades with 0.5% risk before you get back to break even. Anything above that number, you can mix in and incorporate high risk positions. So that's a very effective mechanical way that we teach our students as to how to manage their risk on their trade, not just financial risk, but the overall trade risk. Like for example, would it be better to take this entry on the 15 because it holds more weight as opposed to using the 5-minute candle which holds less weight? All right, and that then lowers the risk on your position. So there's so many factors that we look at in our trades, but I'm not going to dive into that in this video. That's a separate video in and of itself. I'm just trying to explain to you that figuring out whether it's a psychological or technical problem is so easy that it's not really a major problem. All you've got to look at is the right things, and that comes with the right education. So let's finally stop confusing this topic. Nothing comes first, nothing comes one before the other. Have all these things ready. We've got a psychology program for our students, we've got technicals within Falcon, we've got everything covered. So We get our students to get the full package, get everything ready so that they're in the best position, that when they're aiming for funding with that in-house fund, that we know that they've got the best possible chances of winning and making money. And the main thing there is making money the right way. We don't want them to make money the wrong way, right? There's a reason why our fund has got the lowest fail rate in the industry at the moment, because we don't just let anybody on there. We don't just let anyone trade our fund. It's students that we know, that we train, that listen to us and that do well. So that is the difference. But right now with this trading industry, there's too many chefs in the kitchen, and you know when that's the case, nothing ends up being cooked well.